I remember from our last conversation that we had with each other that I talked before about how the lead up to your role for Marie in Hell After Fury had kind of changed a lot for you. I was asking, what the momentum was like for you after the fact. And then you mentioned before that because of your role in Hell Hath No Fury, that you believe because of that role that the offer for Cold Meat was given to you based off people watching what you'd done on Hell Hath No Fury. And that was about I'm going to say 2-3 years ago, I think it was, when Hell Hath No Fury had come out. And so now here we are with this film being finally coming to a release here. So with the amount of time that you've had I'm hoping that you had to reflect on this here. I was actually really curious with you because I had seen the film, and I'll get to my thoughts with you in a little bit about that. But I was just want to share with you about. I wanted to ask you about, since so much time had passed by, that if you feel like the anticipation from having coming off of Hell Hath No Fury, getting into this film, and then all of a sudden now so much time has passed, there is a buildup for that movie for people to look into, see what I believe is what you could be doing outside of what you've normally been casted before with regards to the sexy female characters, the badass, and all those other roles that you've been more or less kind of typecast, really. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you feel that if you still have that same momentum from last time when you had come off of Hell Hath No Fury leading into the release with this film now, if you feel like the momentum is still kind of more or less changing towards that direction because of what's been happening the last couple of years for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there was a lot of momentum, but then the pandemic was still going on when I did Hell Hath No Fury. So there were some delays there. And then there was an actor strike.
Right.
So it's kind of like a 1-2, So it was just a little bit of a bummer because a lot of two projects that I was supposed to do last year got pushed to this year, and one was in India and Australia that I was very excited about, and then another one is a motorcycle one. So the one in Australia got pushed to the end of this year, and the motorcycle one is happening this year, and then I have another one that I'm up for, a period piece. So the momentum all happened, but then it just kind of got pushed
to the side.
To this because of what was going on.
Did you have any doubts though that once those setbacks had occurred, that because a lot of, I think some people may not realize that because the strike had happened, both the writer and actor strike, that some projects would end up just being completely canceled as a result of the setback, with people pulling out for various reasons, because they have to work on the next upcoming project, especially one that are high priority ones.
Yeah.
So was there a concern that, with what you were lined up to do, that all that was going to be pushed to the side completely, where you may not be able to come to fruition for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, I've learned in this business, I'm pretty powerless. All I can do is do my best work, keep creating my own work, and then, you just pray. The period piece one was for last year. And then they just last week I just found out that in April, then I'll know if I'm a go, because now they got a new character to play my husband. So now it's like, will the chemistry work with this new person? So it's like everything is so up in the air right now. So it's like, all I know is that for sure, I did this one. It just got announced last week that Chief of Station with Aaron Eckhart, that's also Jesse Johnson's movie,
right,
is getting released. And then I know the motorcycle movie is happening this year. And then the, India Australian movie, it's an Australian production, so everything is a little different over there. It looks like it's gonna happen, but you just don't know. But I do know one thing: I'll keep working. So if it's not that one, it'll be something else. I'll just keep working.
What do you think though that with the way things are going right now? Because for me, I talked to you before about the fact that I felt like your role as Marie in Hell Hath No Fury was an amalgamation of the various characters you've played into this one person that you portrayed in the movie. And I felt like that was one of the most surprising parts about the film, because what I said before, that Jesse, when I reached out to him about about the movie, he had said you should talk to Nina because she is literally the star of the film. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, now I understand why he said that. But I'm not sure if with what you've experienced coming off of Health and Fury and then getting offered for Cold Meat, that if you're, I guess the best way I could ask is if your confidence, not necessarily in your skill of it, because you kind of basically implied that you believe you're very good in the acting field, that you believe that you put in the work, so therefore the quality speaks for itself. But I'm wondering if anything has changed as far as how you look at yourself now because of what coming off of Hell, Health, and Fury and now getting into Cold Meat with what you have been able to portray. Because before you talked about how you had to put on an American accent, which I want to talk to you about as well too. But then you're playing a very, very, very vulnerable character as well. Something that I think you mentioned in a previous interview that you did with Fat Samurai, where you talked about how when you read the script that you read it and you thought of like this is like a play, so it's more or less kind of in line with what I've been doing before, but that most people don't know that I have done before. So it kind of like suited with what you have been accustomed with coming off with your acting background. But when
Yeah.
you started doing that, though, did you feel like there was a difference as far as yourself, as far as how you've looked at yourself as an actor, that now people are starting to notice that what you're able to pull off now, that there is a that momentum still coming with for roles that I'm hoping that I can get outside of what I've normally been typecast beforehand? Because I've asked you that question before and you felt like that was heading that direction, but after the years have gone by, I'm wondering if you still feel that same if you still have that same thought process about how you're looking at yourself now as an actor moving forward here.
Yeah, I think prior to Hell Hath No Fury, I was very much typecast.
Right.
And one of the reasons were that I was in a rock band touring. I had mohawks, I had blue hair, I had black hair, I had no hair, I had, I was not very diverse as an actor.
Yep.
And, my heart, I wasn't fully committed. It's like having two lovers, and I'll go on the road for 3 to 6 months, and then I'll come back because I missed the other one. And then I would
Interesting.
be like in the acting world
That's
doing,
actually one analogy I've never heard before. That's actually a good one.
and then I was like, oh, now I miss, being on the road. And then I'm out on the road, and I was like, oh my God, shoot me. It's been, 3 to 6 months. I want to go back. It's, with music, it's a lot of playing the same character, so to speak, the
Mm,
kind of music that I did.
right.
So like now that I committed to just doing acting, I was like, I'm going to do acting, no more touring. I'll still do my music, but I'm not going to be gone for 3 to 6 months at a time.
Right.
I'm going to make myself available, and I'm really going to, be available now and really give it all I got. I think after I made that commitment, things kind of started to shift,
Okay.
and I could, I really, I mean, Tony Robbins, where focus goes, energy flows, right? So I
Right.
just
I've
went
heard that.
like, yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna focus on my acting, and then things started to happen where before I think I might have had the opportunities, but I'll be on the road. I'm out on the road with 3 or 4 guys touring, and you can't just leave a tour.
Right.
Yeah, so it was, I think that was one of the reasons. So I think Hell Hath No Fury, when I did that, I felt like, okay, now I'm in the flow. Now I'm like, I'm on the train in the direction that I wanted to go.
Did you
So
feel
when I,
rejuvenated though, coming off of that and seeing how the reaction that people were giving from your performance in the film in general, like where people were more positive to that? Did you feel a sense of like this actually is what's the best way I can ask? Not as like is it worth it for you, but more in a sense like I think I'm gonna stick with this because I'm realizing that this what I'm gonna go through here with now is it's a change for the better for myself, because I'm sure when you're doing touring with the music that it obviously does take a lot out of you, but going into this, like I'm wondering if there's something about if there's any sort of sense of relief that came from what you were receiving as far as the attention is concerned in the word of mouth, that you felt like was much more satisfactory with that than you probably did in probably coming off a tour.
yeah, I mean, we gave it everything we had in Hell Hath No Fury, but you just
Right.
never know.
Right.
I'm one of those artists. I was trying to honor those French women that Jesse drew from, because they're based on true stories. They're
Right.
unsung heroes, those women that would go and gather information from the Nazis. So I always felt like I wasn't doing enough. Because how do you honor these women's lives? You know, they gave their, you know, they died
Right.
for the greater good, for trying to stop what was happening, right? So I'm trying to play these, so to speak, real heroes, and you know, and here I am as an actor, you know, from, you know, a little country called Denmark. So I kind of felt, I just constantly felt like I didn't, I was like, I couldn't do any more than I did, and I didn't know if that was enough. So
Right.
when I finished it and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you were so great," it was kind of like, you know, because I didn't know. I just didn't know. I gave it everything I had, but I didn't know how it was going to get received.
Well,
You
you had
know?
very little prep for that role, and then
Yeah.
seeing how everything turned out, I'm sure you might have felt a little satisfaction. Like it's actually pretty. Because when you saw your performance, I think you mentioned before that you actually were very happy with what you what you were able to pull off with the very little amount of time that you
Yeah.
had,
I mean,
and
that
then
was
right,
try to do a French monologue and you
yeah,
don't speak French and you
right,
have to learn it like
right,
you know what I mean? And you have to, you know, stay in character, do the whole, you know, and you're hanging on a cross tied. How about that? You're hanging on a cross tied, and people are shooting at you with a skull on your head, and you have to recite a monologue.
yeah.
Like those kind of things, I was just like, I don't, I mean, it's impossible, but somehow I did it. And I feel like that, you know, I was so worried about the French accent and my French that it wasn't perfect, but somehow I feel like that the performance kind of overshadowed the whatever little perfection things that I didn't maybe nail perfectly, you know?
Well, so moving forward now with Cold Meat, then,
Yeah.
because as of this recording last night, you guys had the premiere for the movie,
Yes.
and you also had a Q&A as well too. But I'm
Yeah.
wondering now that you've seen it with more or less an audience now, um, I'm sure you may have had some private screenings, of seeing the movie to see where it's at, to get to its final cut now. But when you watch it now, um, is the reaction more or less the same from coming off of Hell Hath No Fear, or do you have more or less like a difference as far as how you look yourself coming off of Cold Meat, especially for that lengthy period of time because of all the strikes and the delays that occurred? Do you look at yourself more or less the same? Like I'm able to pull off with I'm happy with what I pulled off here. I'm assuming that you had more time to prep for that role as opposed to you did for Marie. So
Yeah, I did.
with the
A lot
more
more.
right, so the ample time you had to do so here, did you notice a difference about the performance in Hell Hath No Fury and in this film where you realize that okay, so because I had more time, I'm looking at this, I'm very happy with what I've done here, or I'm not sure how you look at yourself now as a result of coming up with what the difference in the two productions there with the timing.
Well, it's so hard because Marie barely spoke,
Right,
right? She didn't say much. And the movie Cold Meat that I just did, it's, you know, a play. All we do is talk.
right.
So it's like two complete different movies, and I'm such a perfectionist. You know, like you know, everyone did so amazing, but I watch it and I'm like, oh, maybe, you
Is that
know,
like low confidence coming from yourself? Because I've talked to quite a few actors that always have like a I'm not saying it's a low self esteem, but it's like it's almost as if that they're never completely satisfied, despite the fact
that's
that
good. I mean, you don't want to look and be like, yeah, baby, you know,
no, I
because then
understand what you're saying.
grow.
I trust me, I understand. But like when I'm looking at you, like I'm pointing out to how healthy and including this role as well
Yeah,
too, in Cold Meat, that when I see your performance, like I think you've done a really good job. Like I really believe that if people take the time to see your resume now, and if they were to look at these two roles, like they can
yeah,
see what you're able to pull off, really, in my opinion, at such a high level. So I would think that, I'm hoping that with the word of mouth, that people will react positive to the film and especially with your performance, that might give you a sense of confidence that, okay, I got to handle this here. But I hear a lot of actors that are saying that it's not enough. And I'm not saying I don't understand. I do, but I always feel like that I think you've done good enough for you to say I'm proud of what I've done up to this point, but I know I can do better. Do you
yes,
understand where I'm coming
yeah.
from with that?
No, I mean, from the reviews that I got from Cold Meat and the feedback and watching it, you know, and the offers course that's coming in now for this year.
Mhm.
I think it's this new movie is definitely helping, so but I just did an interview, when was it, yesterday, the day before yesterday, and the guy was like, he was like, he's like, it's so weird. He's like, you're a really beautiful girl, but in that movie you were so unattractive. I was like, well, I mean, she's a beaten down waiter in a small diner who has a daughter and lives with her mom. Like, she's not gonna come in like, you know what I mean? I
Glamour, yeah.
ate crappy food and didn't put moisturizer on, and I don't know. I mean, I was like, it's just very interesting what people are taking away from the movies. He loved it. He just thought it was so interesting that I looked so different. He was just like, he's like, you just weren't very attractive in that movie. And I was like, well, she's not really supposed to be. She's a diner waitress, who's,
You
you
know,
know,
it's
the
funny that
bottom.
you pointed. It's funny the guy pointed that out there, but I was actually curious about your because here's what's interesting for me because I've heard very similar more or less critiques if you want to call it that, where like for example I remember there was an interview that Mel Gibson had done when he did the Passion of the Christ,
Yeah.
and Monica Bellucci is in that movie. She played Mary Magdalene in the film,
Mm,
and he was saying something to the effect of like, we hired her because she was not only a good actress, but she's really beautiful because Mary Magdalene in the Bible is supposed to be a very gorgeous woman and so on. And he's like, but she was so attractive that it was very distracting. And and he was saying that whenever she would hear him say that, she was like, well, what do you want me to do to look more ugly? So she literally grabbed mud or whatever it was to get all over her face to like make her as unattractive as possible for the role. And I find that interesting when people point that as a critique because to me, I'll be honest, when I look at the film, yes, you are very beautiful, but that's not what I saw in the film. If that makes any sense, like I'm looking
thank
at
you.
purely
I was like,
performances.
I hope that's not what you're like.
Yeah,
I was like, I
so
don't know if I
so
was,
it's
yeah,
interesting that people point that out, especially even a
he's
director
right.
like Mel Gibson, who's like, you're so gorgeous, and he's hired the woman, and I'm like, but I'm sure you hired her for the talent, and I'm sure he did, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
that's it's a very odd thing to point out. But
yeah,
at any rate, I did want to ask the one thing because I know we're gonna be short on time here, but I was really curious now with regards to the amount of time you had time to prep for the role. But when you're listening to your and watching your performance, but now you're listening to yourself with the American accent, are you
yeah,
content with what you were able to pull off here with the ample time you had to prepare for that because of your character? You mentioned before in the previous conversation we had that pulling off an American accent was not very easy, despite the fact you live in America and you hear it all the time. It's still something
yeah.
that's not easy for you to get the swing of here. So, but when you listen to it now, are you content with what you've able to pull off there?
Well, what happened was I worked with a dialect coach, Erica Schaefer, and then what happens is when we got into the later scenes, my accent started to get really thick
Yeah,
because it got more emotional.
yeah,
So I had a chat with the director because I could do two things. I could become fully all American, but I would always have like a little part of me thinking about it, right? Always like a little part, like being aware that, just making sure I was 100% American. Like it would distract me a little bit. And then I said it would be, the director was so open towards the end. I said it would just be so much more interesting if I was from another country and I moved here and I'm living with my mom and I'm having this baby. If you learn in the very end of the movie that I'm
yeah,
actually not from here.
yeah,
So I was like, if you give me that leverage, you're going to get a better performance because then I don't have to constantly think about the accent, to make sure that it doesn't slip out. Because in the emotional moments, it's kind of like, I don't know where you're from, but a lot of people, if they get drunk,
yeah, yeah.
then,
I know what you're talking about.
it comes
Yeah,
out if they're Irish or Canadian
right.
or whatever. And that's kind of what it is too. In the emotional scenes, my accent would start to come out, even though I worked with a dialect coach. So I had a long talk with a director and he gave me the freedom we added that in the very end. So I didn't have to, if you hear slight little
Yeah,
things
I picked up
pop
on it too.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so there was little places where it popped out where if we hadn't done that, we would have to go in and edit out the takes where it gave away that I wasn't American. And there
Right.
was really no reason for her to be American.
Why do you think that that was an important factor for the character in the first place, and then to the point where the director says, "All right, we can just change it to keep your accent instead"? Do you think that like
Because
it was necessary in the first place for that character?
the director has had this script for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Showed up on set, he had like a storyboard, storyboarded the whole movie in his head. I mean, he knew exactly how Anna was going to act. So it took him a second, the director, to like step back. And I was like, Sebastian, I was like, I have prepared too. You hired me because you liked what I did. So maybe let me show you. And the other actor, Alan, had the same.
Yeah.
So kind of like combined it. We took his ideas and how he saw it, and we kind of combined it, what we had in mind. But the director had such a clear vision, which is an amazing thing. But yet he was able to let it go so we could kind of do what we prepared as well.
Right.
Because he had it for 10 years. So in his
Right.
mind, she was just American. For 10 years, he's been carrying that around.
So here's what I wanted to ask you more or less in closing here for you then, because I've come to a part of, I guess, of this stage of doing the show where I've always been really curious with people in the entertainment industry about how they look at themselves as far as their career is concerned. Because I don't think we talked about this before the first time around, but when I did pick up on some of the later interviews you've done since then, um, one of the things that I've always was more interested in learning about from you is that, because you've had a lot of highs and lows with your career, both in music and also in the acting field. And I'm very happy that things are starting to change for the better as far as the career opportunities that are presented to you now.
Yeah.
And when I saw Cold Meat earlier, I was very happy to see that what you had done coming off of Hell Hath No Fury. And I know you've done some other things after the fact, but coming off of that and then getting into this movie here too, like the first thing that I thought of was the fact that one thing that you had done gave you this opportunity.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was something different that I noticed that I felt was rightfully earned in terms of like you being able to showcase what you can do outside of the typecasting roles you've been presented pretty much your whole career. So I'm actually really curious about your perspective on yourself now when it comes to, like, I hope this never happens, but I do wonder though, if one day this were all to stop now, would you be content with what you've been able to accomplish up to this point, especially now, like you've been able to do roles that were not typecast roles that you've been, like I said, we mentioned before, but you've actually been able to expand and work on areas of your acting skills that people can now look and say, yeah, she's actually a really good actress. And then you have the word of mouth that people actually have reacted positive to you. But then looking back at it, if this is all were to go away, would you still be very happy with what you've been able to accomplish up to this point? And then if it never were to come back again, would you feel something is missing, or would you be able to move on from that and find something else to make yourself happy, if you will?
I mean, just the fact that I'm making a living doing what I love to do, I think any artist is crazy not to be grateful for that.
Right.
Because most of us, work as waiters, or we have side gigs, and I'm making a living doing what I love to do. So that in itself to me is mind blowing, that I came to America, by
Right.
myself as a little girl, and I somehow am sitting here,
Right.
So like that to me. So again, if that was it, I would be beyond grateful. But I feel like I just started. Like
I
I
agree.
have a lot. I feel like Hell Hath No Fury was great. I feel like Cold Meat was great. And then this new one is I mean, I have so much more to give. I feel like I just like kind of scratched the surface a little bit.
So with the upcoming projects you have coming down the pipe that you've mentioned before, um, I believe you kind of more or less put it out there before that you believe you put things out in the universe and you think something will come out of it.
Yeah.
But do you still have the same thought process now where, if I putting positive energy out there and I think something positive will come out of, like, whether it be, another opportunity, or if the film doesn't turn out as successful, but it gave me an outlet to do something else that gave me opportunity to try something different, whether it be, let's say, with music or some other acting gig, if you will. But I'm wondering if you still have that same thought process, because with the amount of years you had to get to this point, I'm not sure if you've ever, you told before, I think that you consider quitting every day, but then you come back to it because you still love it. But if it ever comes to that point where, if it doesn't go anywhere, what will I do with my time? But you've already answered my question, but I guess I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper before you sign off here. But I'm hoping that my question does make sense for you to answer here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have any other talents, and I do believe that, I was always one of those people who were like, well, why don't you just like finance your own music? Why don't you, or get some friends to finance it, and, or movies or whatever it is. And I always believed that if I can't get someone in the business professional to finance it, it's just not good enough. So I'm like,
It's
eventually I'll
interesting.
get it good enough to someone to give me a chance. And then it's just if I'm ready or not. That has always been my philosophy. But what has been happening lately is this year that these other avenues have been coming, like opportunities where I'm producing and other opportunities where I'm doing both, but in front and behind the camera, that I did not want and I did not seek, but they have just been coming. And I'm really good at it. And it's been like a hard one to swallow because I have my visions and I, know what I want as an actor. But as long as it's creative and it's in the, it's in the, I'm creating and it's something that's challenging for me where I wake up every morning, like, most mornings I wake up pretty damn excited because I can't wait to do what I love to do, right? So as
Right.
long as I'm doing that, I'm just staying open. Where in the past, I think I was very hard-headed.
Right. I think you mentioned that
You
before.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
take jobs because I was too cool to play that part, or, when I was signed to Warner Brothers, they wanted me to do different kind of music, and I was too cool. I wasn't going to do that because I am this, and I just had,
You're very
I was so
stubborn,
cool
basically.
that I was like shooting myself in the foot because, yeah.
I see what you're
When I
saying.
first started, I had my modeling name that was Maria Bergman, and then my artist name that was Nina Bergman, because I didn't want people to know I was the same person, because I thought it wasn't cool to be doing modeling to support myself instead of just being like, you know what, Nina, this is what you do.
Right.
You're a model and you do Victoria's Secrets and La Perla, and that's how you support your band. Own it. I thought I was embarrassed, and I shouldn't have
Interesting.
been. I was a boxer. That's how I made money. I
Right.
never told anyone because I was embarrassed, and it just didn't serve me.
Interesting. And so much have changed now. You look at yourself here now. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah. I'm just open now. So when things come, I tend to say yes. If it's like in alignment with my vision, that is creative, I'm excited about it. It has a good message. I'm playing real characters, or there has to be something where I can sink my teeth into it.
All
I'll
right,
say
well,
yes.
on that note, I do want to say I'm very excited for what you have coming down here because as I said before, and I really do mean this here, that I it made me really happy to see learning about because I said before that I wasn't too familiar with who you were prior to Hell Hath No Fury,
Yeah,
but that role really your performance in that movie really won me over as a fan, and then the anticipation for Cold Me, which I was wondering at one point when it was going to come out, but obviously we discussed before the
yeah.
setbacks that was being dealt with here. And then seeing your performance in that movie, I was very happy for you with what you've done. And I mean this when I say this, I really did enjoy the film for the reasons of like what I was hoping to that I got out of Hell Hath No Furies. And they're not the same film, of course, but I hope you
Mhm.
understand what I mean by the comparison. That the same reaction that I got out of Hell Hath No Fury, I was hoping the same thing would come out of it in watching Cold Me. And I can truthfully say that I got the same reaction where I was very happy to see that someone saw what you were able to pull off here and gave you an opportunity to do something else completely different. And I think you've won it as far as I'm not one, I meant to say I think you
Yeah.
really did a great job in doing one of your best performances that I've come across here so far too.
Oh wow, that means
So
so much.
no, and I
Wow.
mean that too. So
Thank you.
I think this was I'm really happy that things have worked out to this up to where you are right now, and I'm hoping that things are going to keep getting better for you, and the opportunities are going
Yes.
to get greater for you as well too. So for the cameras, I know you're very busy, so I'm very grateful you give me the amount of time you've given me so far to speak with you. So I want to say thank you for that, and I'm
Mm.
now always going to be looking forward to the upcoming roles you have coming down the pipeline, especially with now with Chief of Station and working again with Jesse, which I'm also very excited for as well too.
Yeah, that one is going to be fun. Completely different character too.
Right.
Very, very different. Yeah, this is a fun one. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you again for everything,
Thank you.
and for everything else that's coming down the pipeline here. I will be sure to do my absolute best to help promote it any way that I can. But
Oh,
again, thank you for your time, and till next time, cheers to you.
thanks. It was so good to see you.